Keep showing up blurry and stuff. There we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to ACES 53 with Ed Parco and myself. And it's a Thursday. And you know what that means on Thursdays is we bring in a special guest, what we call a joker. And that is someone with a special skill or talent that we want to share with y'all. So before we bring her on, how you doing, Ed?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm just going to go live on Instagram there.
I had an amazing conversation with someone yesterday who, I thought we knew AI and what we were doing with it. We have this guy was a filmmaker, and what he's doing with film and everything else using AI to create like documentaries and stuff. And it's just amazing what he's doing.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, I just, Tuesday.
I talk about it on Tuesday. Well, I can't talk about it now. You asked what I was doing. I'm telling you what I'm doing.
I know, but you went off on some weird tangent. You're like,
it's not a weird tangent. It's AI. It's AI. It's just the whole thing where I was like, wow, I feel like a kindergartner next to him with what he's doing, because he's creating images and everything for his documentaries because he's a film producer. And he's like, this is the first time in history that I can do anything and everything that. And here's a quote I'm going to read.
Sure.
The gap between imagination and output is disappearing.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. And so that's what the most important thing is. Whatever you can imagine, you now can create with AI.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And how much we talked about this on Tuesday, how much faster from moment now to what you want done in, what would normally take us months or weeks or whatever, it takes us hours now or a day.
Plus it took teams, right? That's the other part of it.
Right. So I'm sorry, I'm all over. You said I'm all over, but you asked what I was doing. So that's your own fault.
I just didn't think you were going to answer.
You're just so funny. No, I'm taking my ball and going.
So anyway, back to Thursday, not Ed and Brian Day, but today we have.
I did talk about a joker we'll have on later.
I know. All right, so let's get Heather down here.
The next one? No, you're not.
No, I'm going to screw it up.
Yeah, stop. I got it.
That's what I always do wrong. So
click the third one and you move her at the bottom.
All right. So anyway, today's guest is Heather Wagenhals, and we actually all know each other, but through the same organization. So Ed and I met in 2021 when I spoke at the Speakeasy.
You don't know it all. I don't know Heather.
I know. I'm getting ready to. If you'd listen for a minute, you'd know these things. So I met Ed in 2021 at a Speakeasy that I was the speaker at. And then I met Heather in a Speakeasy event that was a one-day event with Steve and Awesome Cossum. Right? Isn't that where we met?
That was in Scottsdale.
Yeah, it was in Tina and Kelly's house back in the day. So we're all kind of in that same circle sphere through Steve. No, it was the other one that just Steve and Cossum did a one-day knowledge drop on AI and marketing. Yeah. So that's where I met Heather at, and then she's in the distillery with me now. So as a matter of fact, I got to hang out. Heather and I both were at an event. When I was at the Ideal event in Scottsdale last week, Heather came as my guest. And what's funny is she came in, I was the last man. I'm like, hey, we're going to be in your hood. Are you in town? She travels kind of back and forth, but she went to the event. Turns out she knew like half the people there. And because it's kind of a small world with a lot of what Heather does. So Heather, here in a second, we'll let you kind of introduce kind of everything that you do. But with what Ed and I have been kind of talking and preaching about for the last 2 years is building your authority. Right. So whether it be, what are you doing? Are you posting? Are you using social media clips? Are you writing a book? What are you doing to get yourself out there? And then obviously, like Ed was just talking about, AI and automation as well. So, authority, automation, AI, whatever you want to kind of help talk to us about today, especially with you being involved with publishing and things. That's what we've really been focused on lately.
Can I add one thing before she?
I was going to say, since I know you, what does Ed want to know about you?
No, it's just I just want to clean up what you said. We've been talking about how to become the authority in your industry, and what are you using to do that, and that's what we've been focusing on for the past couple of years. And that's so Heather now, since I don't really know you, and the rest of the people might not. Well, she might know half the people watching.
That's right,
because the way you just said she.
I am quite prolific.
Okay, all four guests are watching right now. They're coming from you, Ed.
Yeah, well, you never know. All right, so Heather, what do you? Because we first talked before we went live, and we were talking about you used to be in my industry, the mortgage industry. Now you still are real estate. I've been in this industry for 27 years, but I'm doing so many other things these days. I'm telling people stories across multiple mediums. I'm doing a lot of stuff with AI. I'm creating a lot of courses and other stuff, and I assume you're doing the same thing.
Well, yeah. So I actually complete your little triumvirate here because we've got the authority, the automation, and the AI. And I use all of those things to help transform individuals' offline authority into a digital presence powerhouse. So while I have a real estate company, I just sign the checks, right? I got other people doing that stuff. I own a lot of different businesses. I have a lot of different interests. So the focus that I've had is how do I take an individual, a book, a brand, a concept, an idea, a movement, and how do we proliferate that? I've been able to do that with myself, and I've replicated it now with a couple of my other brands. And, I have an interesting story because my world changed in 2000, and I went from being married and working on other different businesses, mostly my husband's business, to leaving my husband and then sleeping on the floor. 3 days later, the world shuts down. I lost all of the sponsors to my longest running financial iHeartMedia show called Unlock Your Wealth. I lost all my speaking engagements because the world closed, right? So nobody was gathering. And then I was like, what am I going to do? And so I had to figure out a pivot. And it just kind of evolved how it happened. But I started helping all of my friends with brick and mortar businesses get online because they're like, well, this online thing. And I didn't have anything better to do than learning how to smoke a good brisket over COVID. So I started this transforming these individuals onto these digital platforms from their brick and mortar scenarios. And they gave me money. That was the great thing because I was just doing it because I had nothing better to do. I love building things. I grew up in my grandpa's garage, working on cars and building furniture. So to build a TV studio, to teach somebody how to be on camera professionally, how to deliver that sort of stuff. It was just all stuff that I did. I didn't really think about it. And this just kind of evolved, teaching people how to leverage their authority. So I wound up starting a digital marketing agency. And then as AI has proliferated, especially now in search, and SEO is becoming minimized as a result of people doing AI first searches, we now have to think in terms of AEO, or authority engine optimization, because this is where we can dominate and take over, even if we have just a small or obscure brand, or you have a tremendous amount of offline authority that you haven't fully transferred to the digital realm. So that's kind of what I do now in a nutshell. And in addition to still fostering my own brands that I have, because it works with my ADHD really well. But this is the big fun thing that I get to do, is I get to help people put themselves on the map. So, I work with a lot of 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs, people that want to write a book, they're exiting their business, they want to create a speaking career, a writing career, they want to be a thought leader, and they want to get their ideas out in the marketplace. And I'm the one that they go to now to do that.
Wow. Did you have a question there, Brian? Because you're really thinking hard. I can see the vein on your forehead popping out there.
Nope. I'm just letting her talk.
Right. So with what you said, everything you just did, who is your perfect client?
Who is my perfect client? Well, I like,
I'm avatar, whatever you want to call it these days.
Yeah. So I'm a driven person. So I want somebody that has built their career. They've got like 15, 20 years into something. Maybe they're looking to exit. Maybe they're just looking to scale. Maybe they want to go to the next level. It's still in their industry. They're still vitalized by what they do. And this is a person that's, on their way to high net worth. If they're not already a 7-figure earner, they're getting there. They're really close, and they're looking for that extra little push to give them more credibility in the marketplace. Something that maybe they have social, but maybe they don't have the full digital experience. Maybe that they're not out there enough. So while they might have all of their socials in line, they may not have that digital presence on the internet, because the way AI looks at authority is different than just SEO, where we could, back in the day, 20 years ago, we could pack a website with all of our keywords and spin up 1,000 different articles and have unlock your wealth every other sentence, right? And then, oh, wow, there's my search engine ranking, right? And now Unlock Your Wealth TV is on the map. But it doesn't work like that anymore, because we're not it doesn't matter. It does, but not to the degree it did, that we're SEO optimized, because the AEO is looking, the AI is looking for different things. And so we have to think multidimensionally. So when we, for example, go to learn something new, right? As a kid, we just take it for granted, right? If somebody tells us the sky is blue, we're like, okay, sky is blue, sky is blue. So that's what we learn it to be, right? But then as we get older, you're like, well, what color are those jeans? Well, they're blue, like the sky is blue, like our eyes are blue. So as adults, we make associations to things we already know. And so that's the way AI is kind of looking at things, right? So you can have 1,000 posts on your website for the last 20 years. And for SEO, that's ginormous, right? But for AEO, that's like one source. It would be better to have 1,000 sources all over different websites, not just your own website or your socials, because those get kind of pushed down in the calculation. But when you write guest articles on other folks' website, when you take and appear on other people's podcasts and traditional media, because traditional media still prints online, still broadcasts online in addition to their offline footprint. And so it's about creating a neural network, right? So instead of having one spoke like SEO trying to shoot to the top, the way AI is looking for authority is, are you multi-domain? So think like Renaissance man, Renaissance woman. Are you everywhere? Do you have multiple disciplines? Can you speak your language to someone else's genre? And when the AI picks that up, they're like, oh, this person must know what they're talking about because they're everywhere. That's the key. So how do we get everywhere, and how do we do that and scale it quickly? And that's the key. And that's what folks have to think about, because AI is starting to recommend people as a trusted resource, whether or not they are, right? Because, I always like to default to my grandfather's favorite saying, Heather, you should eat more shit because 5 billion flies can't be wrong.
Okay.
All right. Let's back this up a little bit. All right. So from what I have learned recently about search engine, when AI, if you ask ChatGPT about something, you're searching that way, they look at it totally different. They don't look at all the stuff that you just talked about. They look at different things. There are agencies who are spinning up right now who are trying to figure that out. And what some of the easiest things that you need to do is your schema for your website needs to be there. I mean, the basic stuff, but which has never been over the last 20 years that important, but 30 years ago was so important, and 25 years ago was so important. And now they're also saying that not necessarily, this is just there's the people I know that are talking are saying that they know LinkedIn articles are more important than those other things that we do on other people's website. Because the podcasting that we used to do all across everywhere to get moved up in the rankings isn't as important as that and a bunch of other stuff. But they don't even know yet what truly it is, because it's all brand new.
It's all brand new, but it's the older stuff being recognized as more important, because remember that AI is just pattern recognition, right? And so schema and all of that stuff has to be in place. That has to be your minimum thing. So every image that you send to somebody has to be optimized. You can't just have like your camera's random serial number in it. Like, you need to name your images. You need to have all of that schema properly loaded, that what they call metadata, on every single thing you do, and have it show that you're a recognized authority. And so schema is important, but proliferation is also important. I've been on the internet since 95. So, I've got depth because I've been on radio and television as an adjunct to whatever my professional career is. And mostly I've been in financial services. I was a stockbroker, investment advisor. Then I went into the mortgage business. Then I had a credit repair company. I have a real estate company now. And so I used to do a lot of workshops and web and seminars back before we had webinars. And so all of that stuff, I mean, I've got, decades of depth and breadth on the internet. I've done over 3,000 interviews all across the world. I've spoken all over the world, and all of that stuff sits there, right? And that's how AEO picks you up, because you're everywhere and you have the proper markups. And that, you know, I've always used those markups since, you know, when we first started having, because I was kind of like, I was that math whiz, that nerd that, you know, I was the freshman in the senior computer coding classes back when we had BASIC and Fortran and COBOL before Windows or any of that stuff. So all of that markup was something that was always at the forefront or really prescient. And so when you Google my name or you Google my show, tons of stuff comes up. It's like, it's real easy. I have pages of search results as a result of just being able to do the simple stuff. And people forget that the simple stuff can be the most important, because that's what creates the consistency in your brand.
So there was a question came in on Instagram. It said, I've got about 300 articles on the web on quality sites with several in newspapers. How do I make it work for me with AIO?
How do they make it work? Well, so
yeah, if it's articles versus, like you just mentioned how to do it with pictures, right? So his question is, if he's on different websites, he's written articles, how can he do it for that medium?
So you have to submit your own images typically, and unless you want them to pick it, but I wouldn't do that. I would submit an image and I would have your image have the proper markup, the metadata already. So describe what's in the image, maybe put your logo in the corner, like, so Heather Wagenhals, personal finance authority shares X, and then you describe what the image is, right?
Well, so I don't think it's an image. It's 300 articles that he's already written.
Understood. But if you submit an image with your article, it attaches that to you,
okay.
Right? So that's your under the ether kind of thing. Then you also want to take and have that backlinked to your website or your socials. And when you claim your Google Knowledge Panel, you can start submitting that stuff to the Google Knowledge Panel. And that will also add you, because now you're going to be getting overlap from those other places that you're featured. And that's part of it, because if the Google Knowledge Panel will pull from all of the sources that Google's aware about. So you need to be able to have all of your webmaster tools on every search engine, because now they all have their own AI, right? So you have to be able to get this stuff in place. And that's how you do it. So that you need to start aggregating it. If you have 300 articles, you need to have 300 of those links on your website and be able to submit all of that stuff. Because once you gain your knowledge panel with Google, then you can maintain it. And if stuff on there isn't relevant, you could say, hey, that's not me. That's that other Heather Wagenhals, right? But this one is me, and you haven't put this one in yet. And so then they'll go back and make the confirmation. And if your images align with the verbiage of your articles and the link, boom, that's how you do it. So you're going to have to take and invest a little bit of time and go back. Some websites that I've been on, like the links are broken because they don't even exist anymore, right? But they're still out there. And the images almost never go away. And, you have that internet, the Wayback Machine. So things can still be found, even though, the internet is forever. It just might not be right now, but if you spent the time and invested, you can do that, those deep searches. Go to the back of the search results and work your way forward. And if you find something in there that, I forgot I even did this, and then you can bring it more to the forefront, drive more traffic to it, maybe do an update to that article, maybe comment on your own articles, and that'll start pulling it back up into the present. So those are some simple things that you can do with that many articles.
You said excellent. Thanks.
And there's actually one more thing. So while you were talking, I asked my buddy Chad what to do. And it says to create a master author page on your website.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Central hub of all these articles.
Also, like featured in, and then every podcast, every radio show, every television show, every article, put it all there. And if you have stuff, so I've been, a journalist, and I've written like offline. I still write for other magazines that are physical magazines that get delivered. Scan those and upload them, and then link them back to the magazine. So yes, because I was writing long before the internet. I've been speaking professionally since I was 17 years old. So
well, I've been doing it unprofessionally since then.
I love it.
I started speaking at 2. I don't know why it took you to 17. So I don't know. You're slow.
Not everybody can be you. By the way, Mr. Facial Decoder, I've been using all of your little tools when I put my makeup on before a meeting, like, how do I want this to go? Do I make my eyebrows lower so they think I'm a quicker decision maker? Do I put a high arch?
Look at you reverse engineering it.
What? I am a student.
That's awesome. That's true. You take
Yeah.
action. That's one thing that makes you stand out.
Yay.
So, and it also says to make sure you put add that tag to your master author page. I know you weren't supposed to read. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
and then it wants you to, anytime you do a new article and everything, also include a short little bio blurb about written by your name.
Oh, yes, the relationship tags. That's what REL stands for, relationships. So.
Right, but nobody does that. So you need to go back through and add those. But I would say that, and then the most important thing is start cross-linking in social media and LinkedIn your articles that you've written, just like you talked about before. So instead of just leaving them out there, write an updated blurb about an article you already wrote and then have it link back to that article so that it will now be back to on your stuff in LinkedIn and other places. And that's how you can re-get those articles back out there.
Oh, and like another thing about LinkedIn, a girlfriend of mine, she's like the genius at LinkedIn. So while YouTube is technically the #1 podcast platform, the fastest way to build authority is on LinkedIn, because like less than 3% of the people that are on LinkedIn actually leverage that as a communications tool.
Yeah, because according to the guys with the AEO, it's really doing articles on LinkedIn that are more important than posts on LinkedIn to get ranked up higher on AEO than anything else.
Right, because there's a formality to an article versus a post.
Well, yeah, right. But it's just easier if you're going to only do one thing, don't post, just write articles is what it's saying.
Now, the question with that though is like, as I know Tiba has one and other people, do you have to have people to subscribe to your article when you do it? Or is that something different?
That's something different. It's not a good part. Yeah.
They're not looking at that. They're just looking for you. And you can take that same article that you write and you post in LinkedIn and then start, like a Quora page or start a Reddit. There's so many places that you can distribute to. And there's so many different software tools out there that'll syndicate to like any channel. And the syndication is kind of what really put me on the map. When I had this one publicist like 15, maybe 20 years ago. I started when I had my first book and I was getting ready to come out. He goes, well, let's start just promoting your show first. And I got on some syndicators. He got me doing weekday updates on the CBS radio network. And that started the snowball and catapult. And then when all the data breaches started happening, he just saw on my resume this little certified identity theft risk management specialist. And he goes, what's this? And I said, oh, it's from this nonprofit organization, the ICFE, blah, blah, blah. And I told him about it. He goes, well, would you feel comfortable talking about data breaches? And I said, well, yes, because, I have a credit repair company. And so I've managed individuals' credit and I understand what the impact is. And we can talk about, from my biology-based approach to success, how that happens. And that one simple conversation got me to be a Fox News contributor on the subject of identity theft, frauds, and scams. Right. And so I would go like once a month down to the Fox studios and they'd sit me there. And I wouldn't just be on the national Fox. I would be interviewed via satellite on every local Fox affiliate across America. And that happened because I became prolific on the internet, because I had all these links everywhere. You couldn't not find me, right? I was just out there. And when the internet was young, before it fully matured to this place that we're at now, it was the deal. Like if you said identity theft or you said build wealth, it was me that popped up. And that happens when you're prolific. That's the key, proliferation.
Somebody said they've been trying to get on syndications for years in Canada, but they just don't feel like it's conducive for business up there versus here in the US.
Well, you have to know what works in your market and just do what works, even if you don't like it, right? Because sometimes we have to do the things that we don't want to do to get where we want to go. So you just got to, figure out what is going to leverage, what's your lever. Because like you're going to find if you keep going, you're going to figure out where the catapult is and then just, settle in and get ready for the ride. because then it says.
So before I forget, because it's something unique, why don't you explain to everybody, since we're talking about also branding and authority, what Moxie is and how you utilize Moxie?
Oh, Moxie's my race car.
Right.
So Moxie is my McLaren, and so I do autocross and just fun, simple stuff. I'm no F1 driver for sure. But Moxie's an opening. So Moxie was just, it was a nickname that someone had given me years ago. And when I was trying to figure out the name of the car, what I love about Moxie, and this is kind of, it's an interesting thing, because I already, I was just Heather, right? And I had obviously a big pile of money, right? But like when the money sits in the bank, nobody notices, right? They just notice you. But as you move up through society, just professionally, personally, and with aggregate wealth, you start meeting other people and you start shedding the friends that no longer serve you, or, like crabs in a bucket, the ones that keep pulling you back. You kind of just naturally shed those. And once you start entering this world of the rich and the ultra rich, you have to be able to navigate it silently and successfully. So there are just certain accoutrements that you recognize that have to do with wealth. And it's just kind of like this silent club that you become a part of, right? And so nothing changed from the day before I bought Moxie to the day after, other than I just transferred wealth from one place to another. But that simple transfer, because my personality is the way it is, I didn't take a Ferrari. I didn't take a Lambo. I specifically chose a McLaren. And that spoke volumes. Just driving up in that thing sets a different tone. It sets the pace for something better. It's an unspoken club. People take you seriously. People know that, you're not going to get involved with me if I'm going to be a time waster for you. And people will self-select out. And that's probably the better thing, because now you're not rejecting people. People just know, hey, you know what? I can't hang in this group.
It's interesting. Somebody, as soon as I said that, somebody on Instagram said, "Oh, you're the McLaren lady. I knew I recognized you." So that was actually not a setup, but because like Dan Martell, every Monday he goes on Instagram and he talks about the McLaren mindset. And he said something similar to what you just said. And that was, he's the same person, but when he drove in the car, people asked different questions when they see you roll up in that, versus he always had the money for it. Right. But when he has that, that's what he calls McLaren mindset. So just thought.
Yes, I think I've seen like a little video clip or something on that. It makes the difference, and it's a difference maker. But and the most amazing thing is I've had lots of sports cars and supercars, but this one was important because it was after my reset. I went from the floor to McLaren in 2 years, because and how that happened, from sleeping on the floor, because that wasn't the first time I slept on the floor. So the third time I'm sleeping on the floor, I'm like, okay, so the common denominator between all of these rides is me. So what do I have to fix about me so I can stay in that ultra class, right? So how do I get there? And I was like, all right, so I have to shed the things that are no longer serving me. And that's just not just habits, but that's people. That's thoughts. Like most of the time we don't succeed because we sabotage ourselves. Right. And we do it in a variety of ways. It doesn't have to be negative. Maybe we set unrealistic goals, right? Or goals that we could never achieve. Like I can sit there and I can do an affirmation every day. I am a lottery winner. I won the lottery today. Right. But I can't control that outcome because there's 4 plastic ping pong balls that are going to determine that. I have no control over that whatsoever. Right. So choosing the right goals that are achievable, whether or not it's on your timeline. Like if I want to be a millionaire by Friday, right? Unless I win the lottery or I have some sort of widget that's going to take over the world. If I'm not already a millionaire, there's not a way for me to make another million, because the first is always the hardest to make. But once you do that, then you get to collapse those time frames. And so that's what I was able to do this last go round is I was able to collapse the time frames because I had like the neural networks. I had the right patterns. I just had to it wasn't about learning something new. It was about getting rid of something that wasn't serving me any longer. So
very nice. What you got, Ed?
Nothing. Just listening. There wasn't a question asked about anything. So how could I have anything? And I don't mean that wrong. Just
right. No, you're just going with the story.
Yeah.
All right. So
I don't have a McLaren. It doesn't pull a trailer well.
It doesn't.
That's why you have a separate truck.
That's right.
I only have one long driveway.
I don't only have a McLaren, so that's the key.
I only have one long driveway, so it's hard moving the vehicles constantly. So
yes.
Okay. The other thing that you've been working on, publishing, you want to kind of share some insights on that as well?
Yeah. So, okay. That has a lot to do with authority. So what is a good determiner? You take people of equal merit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You take people of equal merit. And how do we know which one's the authority? Which one has the book published?
Okay.
Doesn't it have to be a good one?
Right.
There's a lot of bad ones out there. But the one that has the book published doesn't even have to be a bestseller, because there's a perception by individuals of what goes into writing a book, especially if they don't ever feel like they could ever write a book, right?
Right.
So like if somebody's sitting there saying, man, like I could just never write a book. I can't sit there for that long. I can think about all kind of stuff for that long. I can't figure that out. So there's this mystique about writing a book, right? That already exists. And so when you have two people of equal merit, but one has a book, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, because that says to people commitment I'm not willing to make or I'm not able to make, right? So boom, so this person's already committed and they're in a place where they have confidence enough about what they do that now they feel good enough to teach, right? Because teaching is getting to know what you already know for the second time, because you have to know it better in order to communicate it and teach it to others, right?
Agreed.
It's not just about having the knowledge, it's or the information, right? Because we have information and then we associate it to things that we know. So now we can use it, right? That's knowledge. But once we apply knowledge and we have outcomes we can measure based on our goals, now we have wisdom, right? And so people look at that. All right, so this person not only committed themselves to their industry, they took the time to apply it and craft results, right? So this person has wisdom over this guy that hasn't written a book. Or let's do this, for example. This guy that hasn't written a book looks on paper equal, but this guy is better at what he does. Let's just say like, a cosmetic dentist or something, right? He's better at what he does. He uses better quality stuff. He has higher patient satisfaction, but this guy wrote a book. So everybody goes to the guy that wrote a book because the perception is that guy is going to be the winner, right? That, he must know something that nobody else knows. Otherwise they would have written a book too. So having a book as a better business card is something that I help folks do. And I help them transform their offline authority into best-selling books. I help them get national media exposure, and I help them tighten up their position digitally. So their digital footprint is strategically placed to leverage their authority. Because that's why we invest time. That's why, we spend the time that we do to commit to our industry, to go to those events, to learn new things, to figure out what it is that we need to succeed. How do we get our best life, right? And then once we do that, we get to this place where we want to pay it forward, right? Because somebody, when I was young, saw something in me and invested in me. And so now I'm at this place in my life where, you know what? I need to start sharing that wisdom that I've accumulated, the outcome of the experiences generated by application of knowledge, because I took the time to acquire the information.
It's funny. Today I spoke on High Levels Masterclass, and it was about, selling from stages, like growing your business through speaking. And I talked about how Janine Driver helped me, and I talked about how Steve Sims helped me. The two of them changed my life. But too many people want to just talk about, I've done this, I've done that. And they forget to say like, oh no, it's these other people that have been involved also. I wish more people talked about the people helping them get there. It's just instead of just saying where they are today.
Right. And now with your new book coming out, you have a chance to really catapult yourself as the facial decoding authority, because everybody's an expert at something. But what separates an authority from an expert is that authority is where the experts go. That's the one that they rely on for confirmation that their ideas are valid. But the authority is the person that has that wisdom. So that's applied knowledge plus outcomes generated to make the discernment of what's wise. So now that's where you are. So soon enough, once your book comes out, now you're going to be able to have all these people that want to learn from you. Like, I was super fascinated, and I've been studying body language and facial expressions, my whole adult life. And here you came in and you crushed it. And I was like, whoa, new information. This I didn't know. And now I'm starting, like, because you're like, women have an advantage. And I'm like, how do I leverage that advantage? I'm like, oh, draw my eyebrows on, put my cheeks up here, put my cheeks down there, move my lips around, make them bigger, make them smaller. So these are all things. So you're paying it forward already, and you probably don't even realize it. But when your book comes out, boy, it's just going to crush it, because you're going to give people tools for better communication. And that's what all of this life is effective communication. Because how do we live with purpose, and how do we get the most out of every day? Because tomorrow is never promised, right? Tomorrow is never promised. And I always operate on this one question. Any coaching client I've had, any organization I've spoken to, anybody that wants anything, the first focus is a values-oriented question. It's like, how do you want to be remembered? Because when we know what our values are, and that's a values elicitation question. When we figure out how we want to be remembered, then any difficult situation, any unknown situation can easily be reverse engineered to figure out, what do I need to do step by step to achieve that outcome? And now we're living from purpose, and we're living from values, not just goals. And when you have those values in place, you don't need discipline or willpower, because you'll work your butt off to get there.
Well, Ed, you said your book changed everything, right? That's how you got in the documentary.
No, I actually got in my book came out after the documentary.
Oh, did it come out after the documentary? I thought it was the opposite way around.
No, I got in the documentary because I was on radio on top of everything else I did. Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, no, I mean, I think people should write a book, but there's so many push to have everybody write a book.
Yeah. Well, it's like TEDx talks. I mean, get one, it helps. Right. But
it's got to make sense also compared to, I mean, let's just put that there's 40,000 loan officers in the United States are worth anything. Do we need 40,000 books from every single loan officer?
No, we only need a few from the good ones. I'll give you an example. So,
I have one back there on the shelf, Financial Freedom, Building Personal Wealth Through Homeownership. It's bestseller. And did it change anything? No, but with my clients, it makes a difference. It's about being the authority in the industry. So the question is, what are you doing to become the authority in your industry? You need to pick something and do it now, and then keep adding to it to make better. The first thing I did was get on radio, and I didn't even know people listened to talk radio back in 2018, and that changed everything for me. And because if you're on radio, you're authority. You know what you're talking about.
Oh yes, you're the voice of reason in a crazy, insane world.
I wouldn't know about reason, but yeah, voice of something.
I'm trying to hook a brother up, and you're just self-deprecating all over the place. Don't do that. I'm trying to make you look good.
I got a radio face. It's okay.
There you go.
Oy vey.
I know. All right. Well, we are coming back up to the top of the 40 minutes that we have. Ed, anything else you want to cover?
No, it's pretty much, we went over everything we talk about. And now we just had somebody on who went over what we talk about and just reiterated what we're saying, which is important. So people know, we know what we're talking about. So.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's why Heather made the perfect guest, because, like you said, people come up and listeners talk about it. And we talk about how we use AI and things, but Heather literally has businesses doing that, so helping people get their books out, teaching people how to become the authority. And that's just it. And we've been talking about it. So many people are just like, well, I got a web page. I got a social media I post on once a week, and it's that constant evolution. Like I said, when was the first time we really heard the term about needing to be, was it AEO? Authority Engine Optimization? Yeah.
For me, it was at the end of last year is when people really started, that I noticed. And I've been deep into AI for years. Yeah. I have the super geek account on ChatGPT. So
yeah, I started in November of 22 when it first came out. And like I said, the guy I interviewed yesterday on my internet, and I thought I knew a lot and did a lot and he was just shocked me, everything they're doing. And what he says is, just if you're not using it, just get started with it. And it's not using it. Use it just for what you do in your business to make you what you do better at what you're doing. And that's how you start with it. Because he's still surprised how many people ask him, how do I get started with it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, instead of Googling things, the best way to get is to start, asking AI for those things, because now you don't have to know. Like, here's why I like AI is I don't have to know if this person is telling me the truth because they want to sell me their widget because they had the SEO that ranked them at the top of the search results. I just want the answer sometimes. I don't want somebody to sell me something. I want an answer so I can make a better decision, right? And so that's where AI is helpful. And that's how you just start using it. Start asking it questions and ask it how it can help you. All these new tools come out. And so I keep hearing about Operator, right? So I finally went and figured out how to get there. And so then I said, well, how can you help me? And then he says, well, tell me what you do. And so I uploaded my bio, and then they're like, oh, well, we could do this, or we could do that, and we could do this. And so now I have automation running in my business that I was able to create from just asking the AI to tell me how he can help me today. I mean, there's some simple prompts, but, like I do search stuff with Perplexity, but all of my deep work is on ChatGPT. Because I've built a relationship with my AI. So
I was gonna say, you talk to it, don't you? I think Ed, do you talk to yours? I can't remember. Do you just mainly type it?
I know I talk. It's easier.
That's what I thought, because you were the first two people I know who really talked to it quite a bit.
Well, I've been a lot more recently, just because like the Firehawk we did, I wanted an after action report. So throughout the whole event, I told it, this is my after action report, and I'm just going to drop stuff here and you just compile it at the end. And that's what I did. And then other people did the same thing, and we just compiled the whole thing into one after action report instead of, and I tell people the best way to do it is talk to it, because you don't care when people type, they worry about how they're typing, the words are spelled.
Exactly. Yep.
And you don't free flow. When you speak, you free flow like you're supposed to do when you're typing, but people don't do that. And so just talk to it, and it will fix everything. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't care about spelling errors because it's getting really good at understanding context. And the more you talk to it in your simple language and don't worry about prompts and just have a conversation, it will learn you and it will get better. It's really funny because sometimes, he gets snarky with me, right? Mine has a male persona. I have like the James Bond sounding British voice on there. So, but because it makes the conversation intriguing, but it's really good for idea development, and when I was driving back home to California, I was like, I was in the car for 6 hours, and more than 2/3 of that was me generating ideas, refining ideas, asking questions, learning things. And I had this 4-hour, almost 5-hour conversation that generated quality results, stuff that I could go back to, and I could go, oh, okay. So I came up with a whole new product line and stuff just by talking about it, because, that's how we refine our own ideas. And if you don't have anybody to bounce something off to, or if you're paying for a professional coach to guide you in that direction, like, you have to be targeted and specific when you get to that coach. Imagine how much more effective your coaching is going to be if you've been able to refine your ideas on AI and then take it to your coach for the guidance, because they're going to have the wisdom that AI doesn't. AI has the information, but your coaches, especially, older people, and I say that, because now
Ryan's on here.
Yeah. On my gray.
I'm probably the oldest on the show, but so that's where folks like our age kill it with AI if they apply themselves, because AI is just generating answers, right? Pattern recognition. It doesn't evaluate as well, whether something is valid or works. It just has the information that it knows, right? And so those of us that have 20 years in the mortgage business, 30 years in real estate, you have the power of discernment to say, this is right, this is right, whoa, that's not at all right. But some young kid just like trying to, I'm going to write a book on selling real estate. He doesn't know if it's right, that the stuff. That's why I said, the eat more shit thing, right? Like, just because you have an answer doesn't make it right, and so people are putting that stuff out in the marketplace. But that's where we get to win, because we have life skills, we have life experience, and we have it from the analog world, not just the digital world. So,
hey, before we go, one of the things that ChatGPT said to do is tell it about all your articles and tell it to link it to you and what you want to be known for those articles. And then that way it will keep that information. And so here's what I think people don't realize: what it's compiling about you is searchable by other people.
Exactly.
So the more your ChatGPT knows about you, the more people are going to be able to find out about who you are and what you do. So the more any of these articles that you've written so long ago, tell your chat where they're at, everything about it, and tell them you want to be recognized for these, and then give them those links. Make sure they're your articles, of course, if you're going to want to be recognized for them. Don't go steal Heather's articles and say they're yours.
Don't do a Jay Shetty.
Ouch.
Yeah. But that's what he got in trouble for, right? Was he was reposting other people's quotes as his, and so he had to go take them all down, all that.
Yeah,
so,
it was
wrong with posting other people's quotes. Just give them credit.
So. Yeah, how hard is that?
Yeah.
If it's out there in the public domain, you can requote it. You stand on the shoulders of giants. That's you'll become one eventually. But don't steal. No poaching.
Steal, but change it 15%.
That's right.
Then it's not stealing.
Be inspired.
Right, yes. We are up to our 45 minutes. So Heather, thank you for coming on and joining us today. For everybody who wants to find Heather, here is her website, right?
I'm trying to read it as you can.
Yeah. and then what's the main one you like to do? The Unlock Your Wealth, right? Is on Instagram.
So if you want to learn about financial freedom, unlockyourwealth.com. I just launched a new investing course in stocks and options that our boot camp is live on June 3rd. So go to unlockyourwealth.com, and I think it's /learn or earn or something like that. Or go to tradethirsty.com /earn. I do know that because I'm in partnership with tradethirsty.com. So tradethirsty.com /earn for the investing course. If you want to learn more about the media training that I do at heatherwagenhals.com, you can find that there. And if you want to leverage your authority, I've got all kind of tools and tricks. Visit elevatedstatemedia.com for that.
You need just one that they can pick from afterwards.
Heather, just go to her website and go
to heatherwagenhals.com. It's the hub.
Right.
Yeah. And then put all those little underneath somewhere. Just have them there for everybody to find.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ed, thank you. Oh, never mind. You get to take us out.
No, you're already started. Go for it.
All right. Okay. So anyway, once again, everyone, Ed and I are ACES 53. Today's a Thursday. We always have on a special guest joker, someone with a skill or talent that they're willing to share with us. So Heather, thank you for joining us today. And Ed, thank you, of course, for always being here. And on Tuesdays, it's just Ed and I. We usually have a conversation that we set up for when then the joker's coming in later on. So everyone, thank you for joining us and have a great day.
Thank you. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.